Marcus Lee had spent his life mastering his craft. From the time he was a child sketching on scraps of paper to his years as an art student refining his technique, art had been his way of understanding and expressing the world. His work was vivid and emotionally charged, blending bold colors with powerful narratives that reflected the struggles, triumphs, and resilience of the human spirit. But despite his undeniable talent, Marcus had struggled to break into the exclusive and often elitist art world. Today, he stood in front of the imposing facade of the Victoria Gallery, one of the most prestigious art institutions in the city. Its sleek glass windows gleamed in the sunlight, a stark contrast to the humble portfolio Marcus carried. Inside were some of his best pieces, paintings he had poured his heart into, hoping they would be his ticket into a space that seemed determined to shut him out. With a deep breath, Marcus pushed open the doors and stepped into the gallery. The interior was just as intimidating as the exterior, polished marble floors, pristine white walls, and soft lighting that gave the space an air of exclusivity. Artworks hung meticulously on the walls, each piece accompanied by a small plaque displaying a name and a price that rivaled the cost of luxury cars. At the front desk, a young receptionist gave Marcus a cursory glance, her expression unreadable. "May I help you?" she asked, her tone polite but indifferent. "I have an appointment with Miss Sterling," Marcus said, his voice steady, despite the nervous flutter in his chest. The receptionist nodded and made a quick call. Moments later, she directed Marcus to a private office at the back of the gallery. His footsteps echoed in the quiet hallway as he approached the office, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on him. The meeting. Victoria Sterling sat behind a massive glass desk, her posture poised and her appearance immaculate. She was a woman who radiated authority and control, her sharp features softened only slightly by her perfectly styled hair. As Marcus entered, she looked up briefly, her eyes flicking over him with the practiced detachment of someone accustomed to assessing others. "Mr. Lee," she said, her tone cool and professional. "Please, have a seat." "Thank you for meeting with me," Marcus replied, carefully setting his portfolio down. He opened it and retrieved his first piece, a painting titled Roots of Resilience. The work depicted a tree with deep, sprawling roots breaking through layers of concrete, its branches reaching upward toward a vibrant sunset. It was a visual metaphor for perseverance and hope. Victoria stood and approached the painting, her heels clicking against the floor. She examined it silently for a moment, her arms crossed over her chest. Marcus waited, his heart pounding as he tried to read her expression. Finally, she spoke. "It's bold," she said, her tone neutral. "But not quite what we're looking for." Marcus frowned slightly. "If I may," he began, "this piece represents resilience and the ability to overcome adversity. I believe its message could resonate with." Victoria interrupted him with a wave of her hand. "I understand what you're trying to do, Mr. Lee. But this isn't the type of work our clientele is interested in. They prefer pieces that are refined, subtle. Something that complements their spaces, not something so," she gestured vaguely at the painting, "emotional." "Emotional?" Marcus repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Art is meant to evoke emotion. It's meant to connect with people." Victoria let out a soft, dismissive laugh. "Art is a business, Mr. Lee. My clients aren't looking for stories or connections. They're looking for investments. And frankly, this isn't investment-grade material." Her words landed like a blow, but Marcus kept his composure. "I see," he said quietly, his hands tightening around the edges of the portfolio. "Thank you for your time." Victoria returned to her desk, already dismissing him. "Good luck, Mr. Lee. The art world can be difficult for those who don't quite fit in." The aftermath. Marcus walked out of the gallery, his chest tight with a mix of humiliation and anger. Her words echoed in his mind, not investment-grade material. It wasn't just his art she had dismissed, it was his passion, his story, his very identity. As he stepped onto the busy city street, Marcus paused and looked back at the sleek facade of the Victoria Gallery. His grip on the handle of his portfolio tightened, and his jaw set with determination. He would not let her words define him. If she couldn't see the value in his work, he would find someone who could. One day, Marcus muttered under his breath, his voice firm with resolve. "One day, you'll regret underestimating me." What Victoria Sterling didn't know was that she hadn't just turned away an artist, she had ignited a fire that would soon change everything. Marcus left the Victoria Gallery feeling humiliated, but as he replayed Victoria Sterling's dismissive words in his mind, the sting of rejection turned into something far more powerful: determination. If the art world refused to acknowledge his talent, he would force them to see it. Marcus resolved to prove to himself, and to those who doubted him, that his work mattered. Turning pain into purpose. Back in his cramped apartment, Marcus threw himself into his art with a renewed sense of purpose. His small studio became his sanctuary, every surface covered with canvases, brushes, and jars of paint. The rejection he had endured fueled his creativity, pushing him to explore deeper themes and bolder techniques. His new series of paintings was unlike anything he had done before. Each piece was raw, emotional, and deeply personal, reflecting his struggles and resilience. One painting, Fractured Chains, depicted broken shackles surrounded by blooming flowers, symbolizing freedom and growth. Another, Burning Sky, was a riot of fiery reds and oranges, a visual representation of the fire within him that refused to be extinguished. The work was cathartic. With every brushstroke, Marcus felt himself healing from the wounds of rejection. His art became his voice, a way to express the emotions he couldn't put into words. The more he painted, the more he realized that his art wasn't just about him, it was about telling the stories of others who had faced similar struggles and overcome them. Facing challenges. While Marcus's creativity flourished, his financial situation remained precarious. Paint and canvases weren't cheap, and he often found himself choosing between buying art supplies and paying for basic necessities. Rejections from galleries continued to pile up, each one another reminder of how difficult it was to break into the exclusive art world. There were nights when Marcus questioned whether he was chasing an impossible dream. But even in his darkest moments, he refused to give up. He reminded himself of why he had started. His art wasn't just about fitting into a mold, it was about breaking it. One day, as Marcus flipped through his dwindling stack of art materials, he came across a flyer for a local community art show. It wasn't a prestigious event, just a gathering of artists displaying their work in a small park, but it was an opportunity. Marcus decided to take a chance. The community art show. The morning of the art show, Marcus loaded his paintings into an old handcart and made his way to the park. The event was humble, with artists setting up booths under colorful tents. Despite its modest scale, the air buzzed with creativity and camaraderie. Marcus set up his booth carefully, arranging his paintings so they would catch the eye of passers-by. His display stood out with its vibrant colors and emotionally charged imagery. Throughout the day, visitors stopped to admire his work, some asking questions about his inspirations, while others simply stood in quiet awe. A young woman lingered in front of Fractured Chains, her eyes glistening with tears. "This," she said softly, "it feels like it was made for me. Like you understand what I've been through." Marcus smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "That's exactly why I create," he said. "To connect with people." For Marcus, the day was a success not because of sales, though he did sell a few pieces, but because of the connections he made. These weren't wealthy collectors or gallery curators, they were ordinary people who saw themselves in his work. A life-changing encounter. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus noticed a man standing a few feet away, studying his booth with quiet intensity. The man was older, dressed in a tailored blazer, and carried an air of authority. Marcus felt a flicker of nervousness as the man approached. "Are you the artist?" the man asked, his voice calm but commanding. "Yes," Marcus replied, standing a little taller. "I'm Marcus Lee." The man extended his hand. "Edward Garrison. I'm an art critic for the Art Vanguard. Your work caught my eye." Marcus froze, barely able to process what he had just heard. Edward Garrison was a name he recognized, a renowned critic known for discovering raw talent. It's an honor to meet you, Marcus said, shaking his hand. Edward gestured toward Burning Sky. This piece, it's extraordinary. The emotion, the intensity, it's rare to see work that feels this alive. Marcus felt his chest swell with pride. Thank you, he said. I've been working to capture the stories that matter to me. Edward spent the next hour at Marcus's booth, asking questions about his process and inspirations. Marcus shared his journey, from his humble beginnings to the rejection he had faced. Edward listened intently, his admiration for Marcus growing with each word. Before leaving, Edward purchased Fractured Chains and promised to write about Marcus in his next column. Your work deserves to be seen, he said. And I'm going to make sure it is. Hope rekindled. As Marcus packed up his booth that evening, he felt a renewed sense of hope. The day had been more than just an opportunity to showcase his art, it had been a validation of his journey. For the first time, Marcus felt like his voice was being heard. Little did he know, Edward's words would set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. The week after the community art show, Marcus Lee went about his routine with cautious optimism. His conversation with Edward Garrison had been encouraging, but Marcus had learned not to put too much stock in promises. The art world was full of people who said one thing and did another, and he didn't want to set himself up for disappointment. Still, he couldn't ignore the flicker of hope that lingered in the back of his mind. Then, one morning, everything changed. The review that sparked a revolution. Marcus was sipping coffee in his modest kitchen when his phone buzzed with a flood of notifications. Confused, he unlocked it to find messages and tags on social media, all linking to an article in the Art Vanguard. The headline read, Marcus Lee, the artist who paints the human spirit. His breath caught as he began to read. Edward Garrison's review was nothing short of glowing. He praised Marcus's work as a fearless exploration of resilience, identity, and hope, describing it as revolutionary in its ability to evoke raw emotion and connect with audiences on a deeply personal level. Edward called Marcus's art a wake-up call to an industry that often prioritizes aesthetics over authenticity. The article included images of Marcus's paintings, like Fractured Chains and Burning Sky, along with an in-depth analysis of their themes. Marcus Lee doesn't just paint, Edward wrote. He tells stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the unyielding power of hope. Edward concluded with a bold prediction: Marcus Lee is a once-in-a-generation talent, and the art world would be wise to pay attention. Overnight sensation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Social media platforms lit up with posts about Marcus's work, with people sharing the article and praising his talent. Art enthusiasts flooded his website and social media accounts, leaving messages of support and inquiries about his paintings. Within days, Marcus's inbox was filled with emails from gallery owners, collectors, and media outlets. Galleries that had once rejected him were now vying for the chance to host his work. Collectors offered staggering sums for his paintings, and journalists requested interviews to learn more about the artist who was shaking up the art world. For Marcus, it was surreal. After years of rejection and struggle, the recognition he had dreamed of was finally within reach. The first big break. The first major gallery to contact Marcus was the prestigious Turner Contemporary in New York. They offered him a solo exhibition, promising to highlight his journey and showcase his most powerful pieces. Marcus accepted, pouring himself into the preparation with the same passion and dedication that had driven him from the beginning. The exhibition, titled Unbreakable, The Art of Marcus Lee, was a resounding success. Critics lauded his ability to merge bold visuals with deeply emotional storytelling, and audiences were captivated by the raw authenticity of his work. Pieces like Roots of Resilience and Burning Sky became instant icons, with collectors bidding fiercely to own them. At the end of the exhibition's opening night, Marcus stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by people who had once seemed so out of reach. As he listened to their praise and admiration, he felt a quiet sense of vindication. The same industry that had dismissed him as amateurish was now celebrating him as a visionary. Global recognition. With the success of his solo exhibition, Marcus's career took off on a global scale. His work was featured in galleries and museums around the world, from Paris to Tokyo to Cape Town. Each exhibition drew massive crowds, and his pieces fetched millions at auction. But for Marcus, the most meaningful part of his success wasn't the financial gain or the fame, it was the impact his art had on people. At every event, attendees approached him to share how his work had moved them. A woman in London told him that fractured chains had inspired her to leave an abusive relationship. A young artist in Cape Town said that seeing burning sky had reignited his passion for painting. Marcus realized that his art had become something larger than himself. It was a bridge between experiences, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there was always hope. The revelation. Amid his whirlwind of success, Marcus received an unexpected piece of news. One evening, while scrolling through articles about his latest exhibition, he came across a headline that caught his eye: "The Victoria Gallery faces financial struggles amid changing art trends." The article detailed how the Victoria Gallery, once a bastion of exclusivity, had failed to adapt to a more inclusive and dynamic art world. Its reliance on outdated practices and refusal to embrace new voices had alienated patrons and artists alike. Now, the gallery was struggling to stay afloat, and rumors swirled that it might soon be put up for sale. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. The very institution that had dismissed him as unworthy was now on the brink of collapse. It wasn't just poetic justice, it was an opportunity. He closed his laptop and picked up his phone, dialing his business manager. "I want to know more about the Victoria Gallery," he said. "If it's going up for sale, I want to make an offer." Marcus had risen from rejection to global recognition, and now, he was ready to complete the circle. The gallery that had once turned him away would soon become the stage for his greatest transformation yet. The news that the Victoria Gallery was up for sale was both surprising and poetic. For Marcus Lee, the gallery represented a pivotal moment in his journey, not as a place of success, but as a symbol of rejection. Its cold dismissal of his work had once threatened to derail his dreams, but now, it was an opportunity to transform that pain into something greater. When Marcus contacted his business manager to explore the purchase, he approached it with both strategic intent and a deep sense of personal fulfillment. Acquiring the gallery wasn't just about taking ownership of a physical space, it was about rewriting the narrative. Marcus wanted to transform the Victoria Gallery from a bastion of exclusivity into a space where artists like him could thrive. Returning to the scene. A week later, Marcus stepped through the familiar glass doors of the Victoria Gallery. The once vibrant space now felt eerily quiet, its walls sparsely adorned with uninspired works. The air of exclusivity that had once defined the gallery was now replaced by a faint sense of desperation. Victoria Sterling was waiting in her office. Though her posture remained poised and her appearance immaculate, there was a noticeable weariness about her. Time and the gallery's struggles had softened the sharp edges of her demeanor. "Mr. Lee," she greeted him with a practiced smile, extending her hand. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me." Marcus realized that his art had become something larger than himself. It was a bridge between experiences, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there was always hope. The revelation. Amid his whirlwind of success, Marcus received an unexpected piece of news. One evening, while scrolling through articles about his latest exhibition, he came across a headline that caught his eye: "The Victoria Gallery faces financial struggles amid changing art trends." The article detailed how the Victoria Gallery, once a bastion of exclusivity, had failed to adapt to a more inclusive and dynamic art world. Its reliance on outdated practices and refusal to embrace new voices had alienated patrons and artists alike. Now, the gallery was struggling to stay afloat, and rumors swirled that it might soon be put up for sale. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. The very institution that had dismissed him as unworthy was now on the brink of collapse. It wasn't just poetic justice, it was an opportunity. He closed his laptop and picked up his phone, dialing his business manager. "I want to know more about the Victoria Gallery," he said. If it's going up for sale, I want to make an offer. Marcus had risen from rejection to global recognition, and now, he was ready to complete the circle. The gallery that had once turned him away would soon become the stage for his greatest transformation yet. The news that the Victoria Gallery was up for sale was both surprising and poetic. For Marcus Lee, the gallery represented a pivotal moment in his journey, not as a place of success, but as a symbol of rejection. Its cold dismissal of his work had once threatened to derail his dreams, but now, it was an opportunity to transform that pain into something greater. When Marcus contacted his business manager to explore the purchase, he approached it with both strategic intent and a deep sense of personal fulfillment. Acquiring the gallery wasn't just about taking ownership of a physical space, it was about rewriting the narrative. Marcus wanted to transform the Victoria Gallery from a bastion of exclusivity into a space where artists like him could thrive. Returning to the scene. A week later, Marcus stepped through the familiar glass doors of the Victoria Gallery. The once vibrant space now felt eerily quiet, its walls sparsely adorned with uninspired works. The air of exclusivity that had once defined the gallery was now replaced by a faint sense of desperation. Victoria Sterling was waiting in her office. Though her posture remained poised and her appearance immaculate, there was a noticeable weariness about her. Time and the gallery's struggles had softened the sharp edges of her demeanor. "Mr. Lee," she greeted him with a practiced smile, extending her hand. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me." Marcus shook her hand, his expression composed. "It's a pleasure," he replied, his voice calm and confident. Victoria gestured for him to sit and began her pitch, extolling the gallery's history and its potential for revival under the right leadership. She spoke of its legacy, the artists it had once represented, and the patrons it had catered to. But as she spoke, Marcus noticed one thing: she didn't recognize him. To her, he was just another wealthy investor, a lifeline for a gallery on the verge of collapse. A subtle reminder. As the meeting progressed, Marcus decided to test the waters. "The gallery certainly has an impressive history," he said, his tone measured. "But I imagine it hasn't always been easy to maintain such high standards. How do you decide which artists to feature?" Victoria tilted her head slightly, her smile faltering just a bit. "We've always been very selective," she replied. "Our clients expect a certain level of sophistication, and we've built our reputation on curating only the best." Marcus leaned back in his chair, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I see. And what happens to the artists you turn away? Do you ever wonder if one of them might go on to prove you wrong?" Victoria's expression stiffened. "I suppose that's always a possibility," she said carefully. "But we have to make decisions based on what aligns with our vision." Marcus nodded slowly. "Interesting," he said. "Because I was one of those artists." Victoria blinked, confusion flickering across her face. "Excuse me? You don't remember me, do you?" Marcus asked, leaning forward. "Years ago, I came to this gallery as a hopeful artist. I brought my work to you, paintings I had poured my heart into, and asked for a chance. You dismissed me. You called my art amateurish and told me it didn't belong in spaces like this." Victoria's face turned pale as the realization sank in. She stared at Marcus, her eyes wide with disbelief. I didn't realize." Marcus raised a hand, cutting her off. "Of course you didn't. But I remember every word you said. And I carried those words with me. They fueled me. Every painting I created after that day was driven by the determination to prove you wrong." Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. The polished confidence she had exuded moments ago was now replaced by visible discomfort. Finalizing the deal. Marcus shifted the conversation back to business, keeping his tone professional. "I'm not here for an apology, Miss Sterling," he said. "I'm here for the gallery. Let's discuss the terms." The rest of the meeting was straightforward. Victoria, clearly shaken, presented the necessary documents and outlined the conditions of the sale. Marcus listened attentively, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to her growing unease. When the negotiations were complete, Marcus signed the papers, officially becoming the owner of the Victoria Gallery. Victoria offered a weak smile as she handed him the keys, but her eyes betrayed her regret. She had once dismissed him as an outsider, and now, he stood before her as the gallery's new owner. A new beginning. As Marcus walked out of the office, he paused to take in the gallery one last time. The space that had once symbolized rejection now held the promise of transformation. Under his ownership, it would no longer be a place where artists were judged by their ability to fit into narrow standards. It would become a sanctuary for creativity, diversity, and authenticity. The Victoria Gallery had been the starting point of his journey, but the Mosaic Gallery would be its culmination. The day Marcus Lee finalized his acquisition of the Victoria Gallery was a moment he had dreamed of, though not out of revenge. For Marcus, it was never about proving the others wrong, it was about creating a space where others like him could finally feel they belonged. What had once been a symbol of rejection would now become a beacon of inclusion and celebration. The first step was to shed the gallery's old identity. Marcus renamed it the Mosaic Gallery, a name that symbolized unity and diversity. Like the pieces of a mosaic, every artist brought something unique to the whole, creating a masterpiece of perspectives, stories, and experiences. This gallery, Marcus vowed, would be a place where no artist's voice was ignored. The transformation. The renovation of the gallery wasn't just physical, it was cultural. Gone were the cold, impersonal walls and rigid layouts that had once defined the space. Marcus worked with a team of diverse designers and curators to create an environment that felt warm, inviting, and alive with creativity. Vibrant murals adorned the walls, dynamic lighting highlighted each piece of art, and the layout encouraged interaction and dialogue. The mission of the Mosaic Gallery was clear: to uplift underrepresented artists. Marcus curated exhibitions that featured work from creators who had been marginalized or ignored by traditional institutions, artists of color, women, LGBTQ+ creators, and those whose styles didn't fit neatly into established categories. Each piece told a story, challenging viewers to see the world through a different lens. Marcus also implemented programs to support emerging talent. The gallery offered mentorship opportunities, residencies, and workshops for aspiring artists. It became a hub for creativity and learning, where seasoned professionals and newcomers could collaborate and grow. A celebrated institution. The grand opening of the Mosaic Gallery was a momentous event. Invitations went out not just to collectors and critics, but to community members, students, and local artists. The gallery was packed with people from all walks of life, their voices mingling in a vibrant hum of excitement. The first exhibition, titled Echoes of Resilience, was a tribute to the struggles and triumphs of humanity. It featured works from a diverse array of artists, including a series of paintings by an indigenous creator exploring the connection between land and identity, a collection of sculptures made from reclaimed materials by a formerly homeless artist, and a photographic series by a young woman chronicling life in marginalized urban communities. Marcus's own work was also displayed, a powerful reminder of the journey that had brought him here. His piece Burning Sky hung in the main hall, its fiery hues a testament to the fire within him that had refused to be extinguished. Guests lingered in front of it, some moved to tears, others inspired to share their own stories. Critics hailed the Mosaic Gallery as a revolutionary space. Articles in major publications described it as a long-overdue reimagining of what a gallery can and should be, and praised Marcus for his visionary leadership. The gallery quickly became a cornerstone of the art world, celebrated for its inclusivity and authenticity. Reflecting on the journey. One quiet evening, after the gallery had closed, Marcus stood alone in the main exhibition hall. The space was silent now, the hum of the day's visitors replaced by a peaceful stillness. He walked slowly through the hall, taking in the art that adorned the walls. Each piece told a story, of struggle, of triumph, of resilience, and Marcus felt a deep sense of gratitude for the role he had played in bringing those stories to light. He stopped in front of Burning Sky and let his gaze linger on the painting that had come to symbolize his journey. He thought back to the day he had walked into the Victoria Gallery, a hopeful artist clutching his portfolio, only to be dismissed and humiliated. That moment had been a turning point, not an end, but a beginning. I needed that moment, Marcus thought. Without the rejection, he might never have found the drive to push himself further, to create art that challenged and inspired. Without that pain, he might never have envisioned the Mosaic Gallery and its mission. The transformation of the gallery was more than just a personal victory, it was a legacy. It was proof that art could be a force for change, a way to amplify voices and build bridges. The Mosaic Gallery wasn't just a space for displaying art, it was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of inclusivity. A legacy of empowerment. As Marcus turned off the lights and locked the doors for the night, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The gallery he had once been rejected from was now a place where others could find acceptance and recognition. He had turned a moment of disrespect into a platform for empowerment and change. For Marcus, the journey wasn't just about proving others wrong, it was about proving to himself, and to the world, that art had the power to transform not just spaces but lives.